Hey everybody, today we are debating whether or not bacteria disproves de-evolution, and we are starting right now. Ladies and gentlemen, thrilled to have you here for this exciting debate. This is going to be a lot of fun. We have two seasoned debaters here, and we also have a guest moderator who I am very thankful for because I'm pretty much swamped this week. I love doing this channel, but I have to limit my fun time and not do too much YouTube because I do have a lot of research that I'm supposed to be doing, and I love doing that as well. So tonight, Matt is going to be helping me out by being our guest moderator. And before we get over to switching to our good friend Matt, who's helping out and who will be completely impartial, I promise. He's done it before here, and he will do it again excellently. So we are going to quick let you know that all of the speakers' links are down in the description. So if you're like, oh, CandorMan, I like how much candor I'm hearing from him. He's very honest and real. Well, his link is in the description, so you can check out more of his stuff. Or maybe you're like, that Standing for Truth is back. Well, his link is in the description, and you can do whatever sorts of trollish things you want to do at his channel. So, just kidding. Standing for Truth is honestly, he has been so helpful. I have to say thanks, because Standing for Truth was like, hey, can I debate Monday? And I was like, he's like, I already have an opponent. And I was like, yeah, okay. Usually I try to honor that because I appreciate you doing that. And I said, I'm swamped. So I said, it's hard to find a moderator. He's like, I'll find a moderator too. So Matt was willing to do it. And so with that, I want to just mention
Least I can do.
we have a couple of upcoming debates that we just want to mention as we are very excited for these. First is, not sure if you're aware, but I don't think we've ever done this one. We were actually going to debate the topic of whether or not Old Testament figures truly lived to be as old as 900 years old in the Old Testament. So that is coming up this Wednesday, and that is going to be Nick, who you've seen before. He's from the Great Debate community, nice guy, really pleasant. He is also a sharp guy, and he's going to be debating Raw Matt. So that will be a lot of fun on, did Old Testament figures really live to be over 900 years old in the Old Testament? And then we have one of Standing for Truth's favorites, one of the provocateurs of the debate world, both in the past and now. I'm just loading up this picture 1 second. I think a lot of you guys have probably heard of Kent Hovind. He is going to be debating the provocative, edgy topic of whether or not evolution is dangerous. So that'll be an interesting one to be sure. And I had a little trouble getting the picture. That one's just a little bit overblown. I'm trying to shrink this down here so you can see. I love making these thumbnails, I have to be honest. Is that one of the most fun things that there are like a trillion fun things that I love about this channel, like getting to hang out with you guys is so fun for me. And one of the things that I seriously love is making thumbnails, because I can put like my little Star Wars references in the thumbnails, or I can depict people in strange ways. So anyway, Kent Hovind and Mr. Archaeopteryx is his alias. They will be debating. That's this month. Oh, it's already July. So, God Servant, thanks for your super chat, who said, evolution is false. No gain of information. Mutations. Case closed, friends. Well, we'll save that for the end, but just in case you guys are aware, you can ask questions in the live chat. They don't have to be super chats. So if you're like, hey, I've got a question, but not doing the old super chat, no problemo. Just if it'll make it a little bit easier, if you can put at Modern Day Debate for Matt to see it, he will scoop up all of your questions, put them in a list, and then he will be reading them at the end of the stream during the Q&A. And so, in addition, Super Chat is an option, as you just saw. With Super Chat, you can also make a comment toward one of the debaters. So if you want to let Standing for Truth know how you really feel, you can do that. Is basically those will be read off, and the debaters will at least, of course, have a chance to respond to those. And they also automatically, all the super chats will go to the top of the list. Last, thanks for being here. We're excited that you checked us out. If it's your first time, consider hitting that subscribe button, as we are trying to build an eclectic community as we do hopefully debates on both religion, and we're starting to move into the politics realm as well. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Matt, who I again have to say thanks so much, Matt, for helping us out tonight by being willing to moderate on my behalf. So I'm going to switch over, and Matt will let everybody know the format for the debate, and we'll take you through the rest of the debate. So thanks so much, everybody, for being here. And Matt, I am switching over so that you can take over. Thanks for being here, Matt. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, James. Thanks for having me on and introducing me. And yeah, the format's pretty simple today. It's going to be a 5-minute opening for each person with a 20-minute back and forth discussion. And then there's going to be a 5-minute closing, and then 20 minutes question and answer. So that's a lot. So feel free to throw out your questions whenever you have them. I'll be taking them down as much as I possibly can. So yeah, address them to modern day debates so I see them pop up, and I'll keep an eye out for everybody. And if you guys would like to introduce yourselves, that would be great, because I am unfamiliar with CandorMan. So that would be.
You can start, CandorMan. You can start with your introduction of yourself.
Thanks, man. So my name's CandorMan. CandorMan. Sorry, I used two names. You can call me Joe. I do this entirely for fun. I don't have any agenda. Debating topics that I feel confident in is just a hobby of mine. I used to be much more into debate, and I was really into my convictions when I was just getting out of, my Jewish background. But now it's just entertainment for me. So if anyone wants to have conversations with me, my channel has my Discord channel info. If you just want to hop in and say why I failed miserably during this debate or previous ones, or if you just think I'm wrong, yeah, stop by and let me know. That's pretty much it. There's not a lot to me. There's not much on my channel, but hopefully with conversations like this happening more often, there'll be more and more.
Great. Standing for truth. You are up.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me, James. Thanks for moderating, Matt, and thanks for doing this debate, CandorMan. I think it's an interesting topic. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Not much to say about me. You can check out my channel where we have a lot of videos exposing evolution, promoting creation, of course, discussions, debates. So a lot of fun planned in the future as well. So I'm looking forward to this debate, and to the audience. Hopefully you guys have a good time. Thanks, Matt.
Awesome. So, all right, we're going to do our 5-minute opening presentation, and I won't start it until you guys either have your presentation up and ready to go or on your first word. And have you guys decided who's going to go first?
I can start. It's up to Joe. It's up to you. You want me to start?
Well, I think I'd like to start just to kind of frame why this discussion is happening, given that I was the one that came to you with it,
Sure.
if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
So I've been watching a lot of SFT's debates, performances online, and I feel he's never been able to satisfy, or he's never been able to satisfactorily answer a single question of mine. And I went to him in YouTube comments about it, and I just never got anything satisfactory. And I thought it's one thing that is such a huge flaw in pretty much all of what he believes about genetics, that it needs to be addressed. And that's why the debate title is about bacteria specifically. It's going to go a little bit broader than bacteria, but it's why it's a more specific title than other ones in the past you've seen, like creationism versus evolution or some other vague stuff. The reason I did that is because, again, it's a huge flaw, in my opinion. I'll get into that in a sec. But really, whenever a debate is titled something so vague and broad like creationism versus evolution, we see a ton of gish galloping. We see sources that are never backed up. We see arguments that are never fleshed out. It's never been satisfying for me. And again, I'm here just for entertainment purposes. And if I'm not entertained, if I'm not getting these satisfactory answers, and I just feel unfulfilled. It's frustrating for me. So I'm hoping with this debate, I am able to extract from Standing the answer to one question. That question is, given reductive evolution, devolution, genetic entropy, there's a few different terms he uses for this, given the reduction in fitness of species over generations, why do we not see species devolving in the real world where it would be most obvious? Where it would be most obvious would be in species with very short lifetimes and huge populations, tons of turnover of genes from generation to generation. Bacteria, for example, large genomes, lots of room for mutations, really rapid lifetimes and generations. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. I need an answer of how all of these things that he's saying is affecting every species on the planet isn't apparent where it would necessarily be the most obvious. So I'm hoping that he provides some type of mechanism that allows fruit flies and bacteria and mice and rabbits, things that reproduce quickly and have quick generation turnover, some type of mechanism they use to avoid the catastrophic effects of genetic entropy, as he calls it. And I'll give the rest of my time to Standing, I guess.
Okay. We'll save it for the end. I'll add that on. All right.
So, I'm sorry. One more thing I'd like to add, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not here to defend evolution. It's not about me proving that animals evolve or one species can turn into the next, or the flood didn't happen, or the Earth is old. That has nothing to do with that. It's, again, that singular point of why don't we see genetic entropy where we would most expect to? Sorry, that's it.
Okay. All right. Standing for truth. You are up, and I will begin it on your first words.
Okay, can you see my slides there, guys? Okay, awesome. Let's get her going. Thanks so much, CondorMan. It's a good question. So at the end of the day, genetic entropy, it's destroying and it's eroding the genomes of all living organisms due to mutation accumulation. It's also destroying the faith of those evolutionists that just want to hope, dream, and imagine that bacteria-like organisms evolved into a whale over lots of time and incremental changes. Right here, Darwin Devolves, Michael Behe. It's a recent book. It's a great book. He puts it perfectly when he says Darwinian evolution proceeds mainly by damaging or breaking genes, which counterintuitively sometimes help survival. In other words, the mechanism is powerfully devolutionary. It promotes the rapid loss of genetic information. Laboratory experiments, field research, and theoretical studies all forcefully indicate that, as a result, random mutation and natural selection make evolution self-limiting. Darwin's mechanism works chiefly by squandering genetic information for short-term gain. Darwin Devolves, he gets heavily into, the most famous evolution experiment. For example, Dr. Richard Lenski at Michigan State University. This experiment continues to this day and has to do with bacteria, which is the point of this debate. And this famous experiment actually demonstrates very powerfully, actually, that the mutation selection process has very, very serious limitations. What's been observed, it is adaptive fine-tuning, but it's accomplished through a net loss of information. For example, broken genes, broken cells. So these bacterial strains, they've reduced in genome size. So I definitely recommend that book if you want to read more about that. The downward curves, they're real. And selection, it happens on the level of the whole organism. Selection acts on the phenotype. So at the end of the day, it is evident, and we can get into this, that mutation and selection, it can't stop the loss of genetic information. And so mutations and natural selection clearly cannot create genomes. Loss of information cannot be stopped. Like he said, this is going to be more of a narrow debate on whether or not genetic entropy predicts the extinction of bacteria. If you want a more thorough, extensive debate on creation versus evolution, I'd recommend watching my debate with Dr. Stefan Frello. He gives a good model. I give a good model. So I think that one was a lot of fun. I'd recommend that one. At the end of the day, we're all mutant. Genomes are devolving, and the genome is rusting out like a car. The human mutation rate is 100 per person per generation. I mean, we transmit a small amount of mutations to our children. Let's do an analogy. Let's take a room full of people. Now kill off the most mutant people. Now we have a room half full of people who still have approximately 100 more mutations than their parents. At the end of the day, based on the fact that we are all mutant, if everybody is multiply mutant, and if every generation is more mutant than the one before it, all selection can do is slow down the degeneration by killing off the absolute worst of the lot. But it doesn't stop mutations from accumulating in the population over time. It's like rust on a car. Can you see that single rust event? No, it's continuous and destructive. There has been evolutionary rescue devices, mutation count mechanisms, synergistic epistasis, but today we're going into the bacterial rescue device. Why do bacteria still exist, he asks? Well, at the end of the day, genetic entropy, it doesn't actually predict that bacteria should go extinct before humans and higher mammals. Bacteria are simple, and they have simpler genomes. Population size, of course, is a major consideration. They have huge population sizes. Your gut alone has thousands and thousands and thousands of different species of bacteria. Bacteria, people think, are just nothing but harmful. But bacteria is good for our body. It's good for our GI system. It's good in immune response in the immune system. It's good in keeping, ecosystem balance. So bacteria is important. Bacterial species, they're known to undergo major periods of dormancy, so they're very resistant to genome degradation. But as I said earlier, looking at the long-term E. coli experiment, we see that they're susceptible to devolution as well. So it's a double whammy. Bacteria has very short generation times and more rounds of selection. Bacteria have lower overall mutation rates. Bacteria are predicted to be the most resistant to genetic entropy. Did you say 10 seconds, Matt?
No, 20. Go.
So you can look at a bike, would be like a bacteria. There's not much that can go wrong with it. And if something does, there's so few parts that at the end of the day, you can figure out what it is. That's akin to natural selection. That's like a bacteria. Look at this Chevy Camaro here. Look at under the hood. It's like a higher mammal, like a human. So much can go wrong that natural selection cannot see. It's the slow degradation of our genome. Why are bacteria still here? We can get into that a little more in depth. So I'm really looking forward to this discussion. Thanks so much.
Great. Matter of fact, I think we're going to be jumping into the discussion part right now. So that was good. I see. Make sure the screen looks good. All right. People, before we jump into the discussion part, this is 20 minutes, so it's quite a long time. I don't want to have to interrupt unless I have to. So be sure to throw out any questions that you might have, and make sure to direct them at the person so I know who they go to. I oftentimes get a question and I have to just kind of assume who you mean. So, and without further ado, if you guys are both ready, we're going to jump into the discussion part. Ready?
So I think CandorMan or Joe, I think that's a good question, very important question regarding our model. And obviously you think it's a problem. You ask, why are bacteria still here? But I want to ask you, if man has approximately 100 new mutations per person per generation, and we know bacteria has about 1 mutation every 1,000 generations, and microbes, say bacteria, they have vastly more generations per century, which is then offset by a significantly lower mutation rate per generation. Why would you think that bacteria should go extinct, say before, more complex genomes like a human, for example? Oh, it looks like he's on mute.
You're on mute.
I'm sorry. Can you tell me where you got the mutation rate for bacteria and how you're doing a calculation to determine the overall mutated genes given the quick turnover of bacteria genes because of their quick generations.
So do you agree that the mutation rate for humans is 100 per person per generation, at
Well,
least?
can you answer? Okay.
So if you
No,
disagree with the fact, you
I
want to be a
disagree.
science denier all you want. You can just Google. I've sent you all my sources. I don't want to play this source methods game. It's a fact that mutation rate in bacteria is one mutation approximately every 1,000 generations. You can look at the papers I sent you. You've had a couple weeks to look at them. You can even just Google what is the what's the paper here that I'm looking at? Yeah, so it's a fact here that 100 new mutations per child for humans, and for bacteria, I mean, at the end of the day, the reason they still exist is that they have a lower overall mutation rate, and it is about one mutation for every 10 billion letters copied. So you can compare that to, say, the size of the E. coli genome. I think it's about 4.2 million letters. And then you can see that mutation is rare per cell. So, I mean, this is a fact.
How many letters is the human genome?
How big is the human genome?
In comparison to bacteria, this category.
So 3 billion letters. You got 2 copies, so 6 billion letters, 6 billion nucleotides. And the fact that that's why I use bicycles, for example, as analogous to bacteria.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. So humans and bacteria have respectively similar, or not even bacteria. Some bacteria have a smaller genome than humans, which I guess makes it closer in an analogical way to your bike metaphor. But some bacteria species have significantly larger genomes. So your bike metaphor doesn't really work.
What's the largest genome size that a bacteria has?
I think it's like 14 billion or something.
Now, do these bacteria that you're talking about that have larger genome sizes, do they still have, high population sizes, short generation times, and then lower overall mutation rates? Because that's what it comes down to, is the population size, whether or not it's a short generation time versus long generation time like humans, and then the overall mutation rate. So is the mutation rate in those bacteria with higher genomes? That seems like it'd be a bigger problem for you, because if it's 1 in 1,000, say in an E. coli bacteria, which has approximately, I think, I can be corrected on that, so someone can look that up, about 4 million letters. That combination of facts makes bacteria absolutely the most resistant to extinction. So if you're going to look at all or any life forms on Earth,
one step at a time. I'm sorry to cut you off. The bike metaphor.
Yeah.
What about bacteria is analogous to the bicycle? Is it the amount of parts of the bacteria, or is it the genome size? Because some bacteria have significantly larger genome sizes. So that would seem to be more like a Ferrari than a bicycle. I don't know if you said Ferrari, but so what is the analogy there?
Okay, so at the end of the day, bacteria, as you know, they're unicellular, prokaryotes. Bacterial cells are very small, much smaller than, plant and animal cells. Now, I compare it to bicycles and people to, say, sports cars, is because there's not much that can go wrong in a bacteria. One can easily make a number of modifications to, say, a bicycle without breaking them. But there's fewer parts in a bicycle, just like there's fewer parts in a bacteria. So, more can go wrong in the sports car, and more can go unnoticed in the sports car versus, and there's more rounds of selection in the bacteria, of course. So
when you say more
entropy,
when you say more can go wrong, what do you mean?
Okay, so for example, if we look at bicycles, okay, so they what do they need? They need 2 wheels, a handlebar, a chain, a frame.
Yeah.
There's little you can remove in the bicycle or break before they can't be used.
Yeah.
And when something goes wrong or something does break, you're going to notice it right away and you're going to fix it. But cars, on the other hand, like a human being, they don't need a roof, a windshield, headlights, for example. So there's a lot more modifications you can make to a car and still drive around just fine.
Okay,
You
so
know,
the
at the end of the
analogy
day, it might
is
not
the
get to
amount
work
of.
on time, but it does not operate at full potential, but it still can be driven. The same cannot be said about bacteria. That's why
I,
we see so much genetic disease in humans. Go ahead.
I'm still not seeing the analogy. So you're saying that a
I
car
believe you.
has more that can go wrong. By that, you basically just described that a car has more parts, right? And that if you remove one part, you wouldn't necessarily see a significant impact to the fitness of this car. Is that correct? Is that what you mean by more can go wrong?
Exactly. It's akin to the near neutral problem, right?
No, sure. No, I just needed a clarification. Okay, so that's what you mean. So given that many species of bacteria have larger genome sizes and many more parts and a smaller less physical traits, I guess you can say, a smaller phenotype, if you don't mind my wording there. Wouldn't that mean that a bacteria has more parts, more that can go wrong without
Absolutely,
allowing
absolutely,
natural selection to apply? Because
absolutely.
when you say more can go wrong, you're essentially saying more mutations can slip under the
Are you
radar.
disagreeing with? I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm sorry to interrupt. Are you disagreeing with the fact that bacterial genomes are more simple than, say, a human genome? I mean, you can just Google "are bacteria" or "what's the most simple life on Earth," and it's a bacteria. So it sounds like you're grasping at straws here in order to be able to imagine that, you know, losing information, the degradation of our genome is going to take your bacteria-like organism into something like a whale over time. I know you're not defending evolutionism here, but at the end of I just want to point something out because I think this is a straw man, because the central part of genetic entropy is that mutations, which are just spelling mistakes in the DNA, for example, they're accumulating so quickly in some creatures, say human beings, for example, that natural selection, it can't stop the functional degradation of the genome, let alone it's a double whammy because it can't obviously drive an evolutionary process that's going to turn your apes into people. So like I said, you still haven't rebutted the fact that they're simple genomes, high population sizes, short generation times, and lower overall mutation rates. A combination of those make bacteria the most resistant to genetic entropy. But yet we see, you can just check a multitude of papers, bacteria adapt by losing genes.
I feel like you're going off. I
So
feel like you're going off on a tangent, and my whole point is being totally overlooked. So I want to.
I
So
just want to hear
my
you
debate
rebut my
style.
points. I want to hear about my points, man, because the name of the debate is, does bacteria disprove devolution? You're not doing too good here right now because it's a double whammy for us. We don't predict bacteria
Let's
should
stop
go
with the rhetoric and let's talk facts. I'm not trying to strawman you. I'm just trying to get a clarification about your bike metaphor analogy. Like that's it. All I'm trying to do is figure out what specifically you're saying with the bike and see if things make sense. So back to the bike thing. Let me talk, please.
Wait. Here's the perfect clarification. Is a bike more simple than a Chevy Camaro? Yes or no?
If by simple you mean it has fewer parts, yes.
Okay, just in complexity. Come on. Don't play these word semantics like R and R. We all know, anybody knows, my 5-year-old knows that a bike is less complex overall than a Chevy Camaro. Okay, I've driven a Chevy Camaro. I've worked on a Chevy Camaro. I know for a fact. Is a bacteria more simple than a human genome? No games, no word semantics, yes or no?
So
yes or no question. Is a bacteria more simple than a human genome?
I'm too afraid of you manipulating language for me to answer the question without getting clarification about what you mean. Like all I'm trying to do is get clarification. You're stopping me from getting clarification, right? So if by complex you mean fewer parts, then yes. If by complex you mean a part can change without negatively impacting it, then no. And I may have gotten that backwards, but like it depends what you mean by complex. Like complex is a super loaded word, and I just want clarification. So, and that's why I think where I was going with the bike analogy, if you let me guide it instead of just walking over me.
I just think it's a big straw man because we've never predicted that.
I'm not trying to straw man you. I'm not trying. I'm trying to get clarification.
Do you think Dr. John Sanford, the inventor of the gene gun, when he wrote all these technical papers and brought forth this thesis, do you think he just overlooked bacteria? Oh,
Yeah.
darn
No,
bacteria!
100%.
How could I forget
Yes.
about that? No, we
Yes, I do,
predicted,
but
and
let's
yet we
ignore
still
that for
see
now. Just
genetic
please,
degeneration in bacteria.
please,
It's amazing. Go ahead.
please bear with me. Okay. When you say go ahead, just let me get out what I'm trying to say. Okay. So when you say that a Ferrari has more that can go wrong,
More
then
parts that can go
what,
wrong. Yes.
There's more that can go wrong with a Ferrari.
Than a bicycle. Yes.
Okay. So what you're saying to me, this is what I'm hearing, and correct me with a yes or no, please, yes or no. Correct me if I'm wrong. You're saying that
you didn't give me a yes or no whether a bacteria
if
has
you have
more
an issue, if you have an issue with me with answering the question yes or no, then let me know when it comes. Okay.
But I do have an issue. I'll give you a yes or no answer if you give me a yes or no answer.
I don't even know my question. So when you say that a car has more that can go wrong with it, what I'm hearing is that you're saying that the more can go wrong with it without before letting the things that go wrong make it less fit as a vehicle. For example, if a window disappears, let's say that's something that goes wrong, it still drives fine, so it's not going to be selected against by somebody looking for a car. Is that what you mean by more can go wrong with it?
It's an analogy. No analogy is perfect. I'm comparing a car, so a Chevy Camaro, whatever, a Ferrari, whatever you want, to a complex organism, because a bacteria is not a complex organism. So in a complex organism, okay, like a human being, which is analogous to, say, a Chevy Camaro, a high mutation rate, say, combined with a low reproduction rate, which I hope you agree with is a fact, makes it extremely difficult for natural selection, which acts on the phenotype, not the genotype, mind you. That's why I gave that analogy in my opening about a room full of people. Makes it very difficult for selection to remove deleterious mutations from the population. That's why we predict higher mammals, analogous to something like a Chevy Camaro, like people, elephants, whatever it is, they're not good candidates at all for long-term survival because mutations accumulate from one generation to the next. 100 new mutations per person per generation, much higher than a bacteria. For eukaryotic organisms.
Tell me what point are you trying to make right now? Because I've really didn't
understand that point. I think we should get off because you know what, you not understanding the analogy and the point's not my problem. It's actually yours. Why don't you explain to me why the long-term E. coli experiment has what did we observe? We've observed shrinking functional genome sizes, the degradation of genomes. Bacteria, they're losing genes short-term, but it's long-term degeneration. It's devolution. The title of the debate is, does bacteria disprove devolution? No, it actually proves devolution and disproves evolution. It's a double whammy. That's why I love this debate. It's very narrow, which is good.
Okay.
But you have not given any sufficient argument as of yet. I'm sorry, man.
Since you're not willing to work with me with regard to how, so the reason I'm bringing up the car bicycle thing is because it clearly demonstrates that you're overlooking a feature of bacteria that would be
you don't understand the model
more greatly affected. So for example, you say that more can go wrong with a person or a car without natural selection applying it or affecting it. Like you say that. So when I summarized you before, it was accurate. So I don't know why.
Can you define a neutral mutation?
Please stop cutting me off.
I need to know that you understand genome degradation because I don't think you do. Can you just define what a neutral mutation is first? Maybe that's why you don't understand the analogy. Can you define a neutral mutation, please?
You can ask that after I'm done making my point.
No, I think the reason why you don't understand the analogy is because you don't understand what a neutral mutation is. What is it?
You haven't even heard my point yet. Like, you don't know what I'm about to say.
Just answer the question. If you can't answer the question, then you can admit defeat.
Are you just going to keep asking me questions in the middle of an explanation and then derail everything?
It's very important that I don't like a straw man argument. The title of the debate and your ongoing question exhibits a clear misunderstanding of our model because we've never said we predicted bacteria to go extinct first. Please, what is it? What is a neutral mutation?
Okay, so now I'm going to continue because you cut me off.
Well, Now the audience knows why you don't understand the model. Go ahead. I won't
Sure.
cut
I mean, I'll answer whatever question you want after I'm done talking. Like,
Go ahead. Go
you're
ahead.
derailing me.
You don't understand the model, though. It's clear. I've already given you
Stop
tons of
saying that.
reasons why bacteria
Stop
should
saying
not
that.
go extinct for man.
Stop.
But maybe you're
Can we
not
have
looking
moderation here, Matt?
Yeah, sorry, standing for truth. Go ahead. Go ahead. Finish your initial thought, man. Sorry.
Okay. So if a human is like a car in that it has all these different parts that can change without affecting the fitness, so that all these mutations can build up over time and then negatively influence its fitness, in the long run.
What's your definition of a fitness?
Then
listen, man, no
Matt,
slapping and running. I like
Matt.
to touch it. What's your definition of fitness?
So a bacteria could potentially have more parts and therefore more that can go wrong with it.
Out there, not okay. I hear you.
A bacteria could have more parts, therefore more that can go wrong with it. And since you could say the phenotype of a bacteria is smaller than a human's, then you can say that there can be tons of changes in the background that can't be selected for or selected against, so that you should see exactly the same amount of deleterious mutation buildup in bacteria with respect to or relative to their mutation rate and their
what's the mutation
population
rate
size.
So
mutation rate
for one,
of
you won't
bacteria,
define
I saw, since you asked me a question, it's 2 to the negative 8.
Because you can't just throw things out there, man. Your source methods ain't going to work. Microbial systems such as bacteria
rate of deleterious mutations per genome replication
what don't you understand about that?
2 to the power of negative 8 by, I don't know how to read this number, by 10 to the power of negative 4. If somebody could correct me on how to read that necessarily, but I'm answering your question. So
do you agree that bacteria have about 1 mutation every 1,000 generations? Yes or no?
I did not read that in any of the sources you provided, nor find that online.
Okay, so do you agree that humans have a mutation rate of 100 new mutations per person per generation? Yes or no?
I didn't find that in any of your sources, nor did I find it in online. So when I type in mutation rate in humans, it's 0.5 times 10 to the negative 9 per year.
The inventor of the gene gun, who's got 50 years of experience in genetics, probably one of the best geneticists out there, is wrong because why? Bacteria. It's a straw man.
Yes.
You don't know what a neutral mutation is. You don't know how to define fitness. You don't know the mutation rate for bacteria or for humans. Why do you come into a debate unprepared like this?
Okay, so I gave you the mutation rate for both humans and bacteria.
You want to hope, dream, and imagine that dogs, whales, and pine trees are related?
Matt, can you moderate this, please?
Sorry, standing for truth. We've only got about 2 minutes left. Go ahead, man. CandorMan.
Explain to me why the most famous evolutionary experiment, Lenski's E. coli experiment, has demonstrated reductive evolution, genome degradation. The title of the debate is, do bacteria...
Standing, you want to put on your slideshow again? No. I think that makes it has the same effect.
So Lenski's experiment. Have they lost genes? Deletions. Have their genomes shrank in functional genome size? This is the experiment to look at. Can you explain that to me?
40 seconds.
There has been some genome reduction, I believe, in Lenski's experiment.
Okay.
Yeah,
so there's been some genome reduction. Deletions have been observed. All 12, I think it's 12 populations, experimental populations, the functional bacterial genome has shrunk in size. It contains less total information. You just agreed with that.
Can you tell me where Sanford brings up any type of bacteria or any other species with fast generations or short generations?
Yes,
it wasn't in any of your sources. There's nothing about bacteria. He mentions humans a lot, but he literally never brings up bacteria.
Do you agree that humans that there's generation on all levels?
I asked you a question, right?
What's your question? Yeah, Dr. Sanford has obviously, he knows what bacterial are. Knows what bacterial
answer the question. Where did he write?
Okay.
About bacteria.
First, answer my questions that I asked. What's a neutral mutation?
Wait, it's time, guys. It's time. We're going to move on to the closing. So I guess even in the Q&A, if people want to hear specific questions answered that you don't think got answered, give them to me. But this will be a 5-minute closing, and then we're going to jump into a long 20-minute Q&A. Unless you want to use the 2 minutes that you gave up, CandorMan, to do it right now in the discussion.
No, it's fine. I don't think I'm gonna move forward.
All right, so I guess you can go first then. I'll let you go for 5 minutes. Whenever you're ready.
I'm sorry. Did you say standing for truth or me?
No, you. Yeah, you started, so you can go again.
I don't feel like I need to say much. All I was trying to do was get clarification on this point, and it just sounded like diatribe. It was hard to really get to the root of anything. I'm hoping I made the point clearly enough that a E. coli is a lot more like a car than a person is because of the phenotype size. In that natural selection wouldn't be able to select against bacteria in the same way that it wouldn't select against people. So he hasn't shown any clear distinction between what about natural selection would or wouldn't affect genomes versus bacteria genomes versus people. I'm hoping I made that clear. It was hard, as you can imagine. If anyone in the comments wants to tell me how badly I messed up this debate, please go to my channel, go to my Discord, or find my Discord link, and hopefully you can tell me how I can do better next time. But yeah, that's essentially it. He basically just provided no mechanism that would stop species with short generations used to avoid natural selection. When animals like mice and rabbits and species like bacteria have such short generations, there needs to be something that's stopping their degradation, and there isn't. And that's where we would see genetic entropy most apparent. Yep, that's it. Thanks. Right. Oh, I also want to thank James. He's not here. Matt, thanks for your moderation. Standing for Truth, thanks for joining me here.
All right. Thanks, man. All right. Standing for Truth, if you want to finish off closing with a statement or answer some of those questions, you can start, and we'll start time when you go.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it, CandorMan. 20 minutes isn't a long time. That's why, there's a lot of things that I can hear. I don't like slapping and running. I like to get definitions. I like to touch on everything being said. So I definitely invite you to, this was a good debate. I invite you to my channel anytime. We can take it slow. We can look at all the papers line by line. Maybe you are looking for an answer. If so, that's awesome. You seem like a good guy. I'd like to see you come to the truth, admit the truth. Because at the end of the day, pawns come to people evolution. It's all imagination. You got to hope, dream, and imagine that losing information and genetic entropy is going to take a bacteria-like organism into a whale over time. So you can believe in it, put a capital B on believe, but that's all it is. It's a science fiction-based religion that is contradictory to everything we know about genetics. There's a pandemic. It's entropic degeneration on all levels. I debated Dr. Stefan Frello. He could not answer my question either. We see increased rates of Alzheimer's, dementia, autism is on the rise. There's clearly a genetic component to it. Asthma, autoimmune diseases, cancers, immunological diseases. We've got evidence in bacteria. I've already given reasons why bacteria won't go extinct first. For one, I don't know why he doesn't understand the analogy. Bacterial genomes are generally smaller and less variant in size among species when compared with genomes of animals and single-cell eukaryotes. This is a fact. Lenski has observed, unfortunately for him and all evolutionists, reductive evolution. The beneficial mutations, they were largely reductive. So also known as loss of function, loss of promoter, loss of genes. They're losing genes short term, but it's long-term gene degeneration. It's like this, overwhelmingly, mutations break things. Okay, mutation is the destroyer. It's not the creator. Mutation is catastrophic. And they're breaking things that were already there, pre-existing systems. They're destroying them. And sure, it's beneficial in some circumstances, okay? And the whole debate title is a straw man on genetic entropy. So you can see that it's a double whammy. We don't predict that they'll go extinct first before humans, for example. And yet, what do we see in bacterial populations? We see degenerative adaptation. We predict, it might take a long time, but the Lenski experiment, these candy cat bacteria, they're going to go extinct. That's our prediction. Put it on paper. Now, you can think of your car, and suppose your life depended on you, let's say, getting better gas mileage for your car. What's a quick and easy way of getting better gas mileage? Well, of course, you can throw things away. You can take off weight. You can rip off the doors and throw them off, take the hood and throw it away. And at the end of the day, of course, that's going to give you a better gas mileage, but it's long-term problems and long-term degeneration. Lenski's own data on bacterial E. coli reveals clear evidence of genetic degeneration. It comes down to net gain versus net loss. We've got a ton of evidence. Paleogenomic evidence. For example, early human populations like Neanderthal, Homo erectus, they suffered from reductive evolution. For example, erectus, though, it looks like the genetic degeneration was a little less advanced, but you can see these moderate reductions in these early human populations in, say, body size, brain size, and other pathologies. For example, in the Hobbit, and even in Naledi, you can safely throw the hobbits and Naledi into the more diverse erectus category. And this is consistent with the biblical model after the flood, after Babel, isolated populations. What happens during inbreeding? You know, the hidden reservoir of genetic mistakes are revealed. And what do you see? You see various pathologies. We see mammoth populations were highly inbred, carried an elevated genetic load. It's even been revealed in some isolated butterfly populations, high genetic load. At the end of the day, it's everywhere. Viruses, we didn't even get to touch on viruses. They have a high mutation rate and short generation times. And what did we see with the H1N1 human version of, we've seen that it went from a red hot pandemic to a whimper to an extinction event in 90 years. Viruses are known to go through air catastrophe. And the H1N1 human version, for example, it was a linear accumulation of mutations. Yes, the swine flu versions, they are circulating, but you want to see some real data on something that should go extinct quick, there you go. Bacteria, at the end of the day, it's a misunderstanding. Neutral mutations, selection can't act upon them. They're neutral. That's the whole point. But what we know about the genome now, what ENCODE has revealed, that we're looking at a near fully functional genome. Over 80% of the genome is transcribed actively into RNA. Any change, no matter how tiny, is going to have an effect on fitness. It's like rust on a car. It's continuous and it's destructive. That means compensating for loss of information. It's not possible. Beneficial mutations. We didn't even go into beneficial mutations. There's no such thing. There's no such thing as a beneficial mutation that's not deleterious to some extent. And what they used to claim, for example, go look at our Aaron Rod debunk video. He brings up a few so-called beneficial mutations. They're epigenetic related, epigenetic tags, change in expression. At the end of the day, beneficial mutations, if they exist, or an epigenetic, change in expression of a gene that leads to further adaptation, they're not going to sufficiently compensate for the relentless influx of deleterious mutations. So it's been a great debate. Thanks, CondorMan. Thanks, Matt, for moderating, and thanks, James, for hosting.
All right, we got the questions and answers now. This one's 20 minutes. So questions can still come in, but wow, do I have a lot for you standing for truth. Unbelievable. All right. Well, first of all, from Godless Galaxy for CandorMan, do you have is your Discord link updated?
It actually wasn't on my channel description. I've been putting it occasionally in the chat here, but it's updated now.
Okay, great. All right. So where to begin? Let's start at the top. Standing for truth, since genetic entropy is ambiguous to all life, can you give an example of a population that is not interbred or domesticated, yet suffers from the influx of deleterious mutations?
Sure, I can go on, but I'm gonna use humans for an example. And just like I said, I asked Dr. Frello, I'd say, who's one of the strongest evolutionary proponents that I've debated. and we had a very, very good debate. I recommend it to everybody. But at the end of the day, I've said it many times, there's a pandemic. For one, it's 100 new mutations per person per generation. The unselectability of these near neutral mutations, they're degenerating our information systems. And what do we see now? Currently, Alzheimer's disease, dementia, like I said, asthma, autism clearly has a genetic component. Cancers, I mean, come on, cancer is everywhere. It has skyrocketed. Autoimmune diseases, everybody knows somebody that has some type of mutation related disease, and they're added every year to the genetic database. Bacteria, for example, inbreeding, like I said, bacteria are known to lose genes short term for long term. So
what's that?
I'm sorry to cut him off. How long are the responses
2 minutes.
supposed to be for the questions? 2 minutes?
I actually wasn't given any information on that, and I never. I guess we could just do a 2-minute thing.
Like I said, I could go on and on. I'm just going to use humans for example. So humans, there's the answer. But
okay,
there's
the can I address it? Or?
Yes, you can.
The question.
The question was, I think, talking about wild animals. And to say humans are your example, I think is not answering the question at all. Obviously, humans would have
mice,
a ton of
mice, chimpanzees.
Obviously, humans would have a ton of things stopping natural selection from working. So, if I think they were asking for an example other than domesticated animals and humans, but
sure, beetles, mice, and
that was the last. That was the last word.
I get the last word.
Nightwolf, to Standing for Truth. What is the rate of deterioration for a bacteria, and are there different rates for different bacteria?
So you kind of cut off there. Can you just repeat it one more time there, Matt?
Yeah, hold on. I deleted it. 1 second. Nightwolf, to Standing for Truth. What is the rate of degradation for bacteria, and what are the different rates for different bacteria, if you know any?
So the rate is going to be, the rate of degeneration, I hope I understood the question properly. The rate of degeneration for bacteria is going to be not as large as, say, for eukaryotes like humans. Because bacteria have about 1 mutation every 1,000 generations, and man has approximately 100 new mutations per person per generation. That means, say, bacteria, microbes such as bacteria, selection should easily be able to keep up with the rate of deleterious mutations. But what's funny is that even when we look at experiments such as Lenski, or just Google reductive evolution in bacteria, it's everywhere. You can see paper upon paper about bacteria adapting through degenerative means. And then the long-term E. coli experiment by Lenski, we do predict that eventually it's going to result in extinction and just full, complete degeneration. I'm not sure how long it's going to take. That's the best answer I got. Thanks, Matt.
All right. Did you want to say anything on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Bacteria isn't a species. Not all bacteria have the same mutation rate. So he didn't really, giving one number isn't answering the question.
Yeah. Okay. So this question kind of goes along with it for Standing for Truth. Do you believe that bacteria that's alive today was actually on Earth a long time ago? So yeah, it's basically, does he believe that the bacteria alive today are the same ones that were alive on early Earth?
I did catch that question, but with I will say with CandorMan's last response there and a little bit of the question, it kind of was cutting.
I'm cutting out.
Are they the same as they were at creation? That's a good question. I think, but it looks like you sound good now.
Okay.
So are they the same at creation? Everything was created perfectly. We know that, bacteria, that's why people take probiotics. They're good for your gut flora. They're good in health and responses. That's what they are initially created for. But based on genetic entropy, based on the fall, death, decay, extinction, well, now we have bacteria that's dangerous. I believe it's E. coli that's good in the gut, but not so good in the blood. So at the end of the day, a hammer can be used for good things and a hammer can be used for bad things. So some of the bacteria might be roughly more or less the same, and other bacteria they've become bad bacteria per se. They've become more degenerate. But it comes down to the fact that bacteria do vastly outnumber people. We know that in the Bible, we record a time where humans lived into the hundreds. Now we live to whatever the average age is, between 70 maybe. So we see genetic degeneration there. Good question though. I'd say some is, yeah, probably. But some have degenerated, and some have even now cause illness, pathogens, for example. That wasn't how the original creation was supposed to be. So very good question. Thanks.
All right. CandorMan, any input?
Yeah. It brings up the point that it's quote unquote interesting that no young Earth creationist has ever successfully predicted when a species is going to go extinct due to deleterious mutations, or if they've found a history of a species and then tracked when they would have expected it to go extinct. Like Sanford just completely ignores bacteria, and no creationist. Like there are these models. Sanford uses I forgot the name of the algorithm that he uses for predictions. But even with that, even it's really simplistic, but he doesn't even get close to predicting what to expect when you factor in devolution. It's just he has models and nothing to apply it to, or he doesn't apply it to anything. Yeah, that's it.
All right. So let me write this other question down real quick from the Mott. And okay, next question is what is de-evolution, and why is it important?
So I'm guessing why that's for me. Well, de-evolution is important because at the end of the day, the evolutionists will say that the mechanisms for taking your bacteria-like organism into a whale over time, indirectly, directly, incremental changes, whatever word they want to, hide their religion under, those mechanisms actually work chiefly, as I've said, by, breaking down genes. That means at the end of the day, that type of evolution, where you see the change in the expression of different traits, change in allele frequency, for example, that can make things look different, change, adapt, but it's all surface level. It doesn't actually have the ability to build or create anything at the genetic level. So that's when it comes down to models. The biblical-based model predicts devolution, predicts death, degeneration, and extinction after the fall. We would predict we are going down and not up. And we would predict change, of course, change based on our model of pre-existing heterozygosity. I'd love to have a debate with CandorMan on that, go into some predictions. But these are going to be due to, mutation and natural selection, and it's based on adaptive degeneration. And the funny thing is that's exactly what we observe: death, degeneration, and extinction. So that's why it's important to end my answer quick. And in a nutshell, it's important because that's what we predict. That's what we see, and it's a double whammy because it completely demolishes pawns come to people evolution. So that's why I love it so much. Thanks, Matt.
Okay.
I could address this real quick. I'm actually the one that came up with the title. Does bacteria disprove devolution? I'm pretty sure I came up with that. You can criticize me if you want for that, but I like the title. So I was using devolution to describe the decrease in fitness of a species in its environment. In case that makes it clear for anyone. I don't know.
All right. Next one from the Crow Daddy 2029. Standing for truth. Isn't de-evolution suggesting that evolution has some type of a goal in mind?
Well, evolution, the mechanisms would be random. Evolution doesn't have a goal in mind, but what we see in regards to, say, epigenetics, for example, the non-random changes that we see that lead to adaptation in species. We see speciation quick. Actually, we've seen new species of finch quick. I think it was based on shifts from heterozygosity to homozygosity. So no, it's random, and that's why. And what we see is devolution, the breaking down of pre-existing systems and genes. And they want to say that, a single-celled organism evolved into a multi-celled organism, into a fish, amphibian, reptile, monkey, man, bird. I mean, these take phenomenal increases in new, novel, and meaningful genetic information. So it's just not possible based on the changes that we see. So unless there's some unknown change that nobody's come up with, to believe in that type of large scale pond scum to people evolution is anti-science and anti-common sense. That's why I always say it takes a lot of imagination to be an evolutionist. And CandorMan here seems like a nice guy. You know, I'd like to see him, you know, come to the truth and maybe even get saved. You know, look at the gospel and put his faith in Jesus Christ. So, and sorry, Joe, if things got a little heated earlier. It's a good debate, and you're a nice guy, so I've enjoyed this.
Again, I'm just here for the entertainment. You know, like I've no agenda. It is what it is, and I'm smiling. So, but I would like to address that question in kind of an unexpected way.
Yes, please do.
The way I defined devolution, just in my previous response, it doesn't really imply that there's a goal of evolution. Like it's not really a direction. It's just about fitness in the environment.
I think. Well, I'll let you have the last words. Go ahead, Matt.
All right. Yeah, we're running out of time, so answer these quick. Actually, the next one's for CandorMan. I wouldn't want this question, but you're getting it anyway. On a scale of 1 to 10, how beautiful is James?
That scale doesn't go high enough.
Got it. All right. The next one is for you as well. If you see fast mutation rates and genetic degradation in the model, and it's and you see evidence for it, would you believe in the young Earth creationism model?
No. Young Earth creationism has so incredibly much wrong with it that it would take so much more than finding rates and mutation scientific papers to convince me that theory is in any way close to accurate.
Okay. All right.
That's good. He got the question first, so I get the last words here. What we do see is genetic degeneration, genetic entropy. This puts obvious shelf lives on genomes. So the fact that humans still exist today, we do see, you know, the influx of deleterious mutations, the influx of genetic related diseases. That means the genomes are young. And we can look at a number of evidence that shows that not only the genome is young, but that the Earth is young and the universe is young. But when you look at the genetic level, when you look at mitochondrial DNA rates, when you look at how similar, you know, the mitochondrial DNA is, the Y chromosome, all these things just in genetics proves that it's a young genome. So that's where the evidence leads. And you'd think that those that are interested in science and that have a respect for science, they would go and believe in what the evidence tells us. So that's thanks, Matt.
All right, Standing, will you debate Bill Ludlow on here on Modern Day Debate?
Oh yeah. I did suggest like a general creation versus evolution debate with him, or just a genetics related debate. He said that's not his specialty, and he suggested someone like Herman Mays or somebody. But I would love to do that. But it doesn't sound like he wants to do that type of debate. But if he does, let's set it up. That'd be fun.
I think he's more paleontology, so he might not agree.
Yeah, I think he wants to focus more on geology or whatever.
Yeah, I recommend you having a debate with him with a very specific question similar to this one, if you think this one was good. But yeah, something like creationism versus evolution, I don't think would do either of you justice.
Yeah, you're probably right about that. Maybe something on like
why is there a
specific
KT
model like we did. Pardon? Like something like, or maybe like you suggested before, you know, the layering of the fossils. We can do one of those.
What explains the layering of the fossils that we see best? Something like that, I think, is specific.
That'd be good.
All right, it looks like well, we're out of time, but I'll throw. Looks like somebody made a comment. Landon Freeman said, for CandorMan, a statement: if you want evidence for creation, bacteria and viruses are where you need to look. Both display amazing intelligence and design and intricacy. So
no, they don't.
All right, looks like our time is up, and if anyone wants to say anything, say goodbye, post if you're going to have a hangout after this on your channel, post it. If you have a Discord and want to promote it, feel free.
Yeah, so I'm going to be on my Discord. If there are enough people there, I don't know, maybe I'll do a hangout. I've never done one. I don't know. I don't know if people want to hear me talk more, but that's all. Thanks again, everybody, everyone in the comment section. Matt Standing. I don't know your name.
Thanks, man. Sorry, I'm not very good at moderating.
You did good, Matt. You did good, Joe. It was fun. It was good.
You were wrangling kittens.
All right. Hope everybody enjoyed it at least. So, and let me message James. Come back. He's got to close this down. We can't do it. So, matter of fact, I'll just keep asking questions till James comes back. Godless Galaxy, modern day debate for a question for standing for truth. Why do fast reproducing creatures like viruses and rabbits haven't gone completely extinct by now if their genome builds up with such fast mutations, and why?
Well, that was the whole debate with bacteria, so I don't want to
that was the
read everything.
Well, do you have any questions for him, then, CandorMan?
Can I ask a question? Does bacteria disprove devolution? Sorry, this is a joke.
Does bacteria disprove No, it doesn't. But I will say that, coupled with the much shorter generation times that I talked about in regards to this guy's question here, and much greater population size, like bacteria, mice, things like this, there is ample opportunity to remove bad mutations from the population. And I kind of hinted at that, talked about that. So long-lived species with low population growth rates, say humans, those are the most threatened. But the thing is, others are not immune. That's why I went into Lenski's E. coli experiment. So I do think you have a straw man understanding of it. So sorry if I might have got a little bit too interruptive. I just like to really focus on almost every other word, break it down. So, and I know you disagree. I think you really do believe that it's a valid point and argument with bacteria, but we just don't predict it. It's just not a prediction of genetic entropy.
All right, James, you back?
Did everything go all right? Did you guys get to the super chats and everything else?
Yeah,
I believe so. I wrote down every question. Of course, time ran out. There were so many, but I got as many as I could.
Gotcha. Thanks so much for doing that. And with that, thanks so much for everyone being here. Give us feedback. Let us know your thoughts. And we are thrilled to have had everybody here. The speakers' links are in the description. So if you want to hear more from the speakers, their links are conveniently located so that you can check out their material. So thanks for being here. We appreciate it. Keep sifting out the reasonable from the unreasonable, everybody. Take care.